This is Open Mind Alexander Technique. I'm Jess. Today we're looking at how do you set yourself up for a midday constructive rest. Now within the Alexander Technique world, a constructive rest or active rest is a very specific thing. It is often led with some sort of guided voice, and I'll be recording a couple of those. My next two videos will be that. I'm going to do a 5-minute one and a 10-minute one. Where this comes from is Alexander Technique table work. So I'm currently sitting on my Alexander Technique table. It's not a specific table that's just for Alexander Technique. This one happens to be a massage table. It's just not used for massage in our case. I have another video on table work in general. Definitely go recommend you check that out if you haven't seen it already. So what we're working with here is the idea that giving yourself some time to lie down horizontally at some point during your day tends to be helpful. For different people, that can actually create different results. So it's not that this is some mysterious magical thing that's going to work wonders for your specific problems. This is just a helpful thing to do for anybody. So giving yourself 5 or 10 minutes to lie down at some point during your day helps to give some time for your spine to come out of vertical gravity arrangement, right? Letting yourself kind of decompress horizontally. It also gives you some deliberate quiet time, especially if your day is pretty busy. This is time that is just for you. Everything else needs to stay away for a moment. This is my time, and I get to take care of myself during this time. Some of my students talk about having a better sense of relaxation. Others talk about having increased energy from it. So it does tend to vary a bit for different people what they get from this, which is all good. So as far as how do you set yourself up for this, what I recommend is finding a place where you can be comfortable being fully horizontal. Unless you happen to have a massage table as part of your day, this is probably going to be a floor, because we don't recommend using any sort of really cushioned mattress or couch kind of cushion situation for this. The reason for that is because I really want you to be able to feel how are you organizing yourself as you're lying down. So an organized constructive rest is a time to practice what is one of the most simple possible body arrangements that you can have, which is where you're not really even having to work against gravity. You're horizontal. We recommend using a position that is medically also called semi-supine. So fully supine is lying on your back with your legs flat, both legs flat. Semi-supine is lying on your back with your knees bent. The reason that we tend to work with semi-supine a lot is a lot of folks will tend to kind of arch their backs if they're lying down fully flat with both legs out in full supine position. It's something you can kind of play around with on your own. There are various reasons that I might tell a student, hey, actually, I do want you fully flat supine position for this because of your specific situation. So that could be an injury situation, a long-term chronic issue. Just know that it's not a hard and fast rule. There are no laws about Alexander Technique and how you're doing this stuff. It's totally adaptable. If you are a person that has particular medical or body use situations where being horizontal is just not possible or comfortable, you absolutely can set aside quiet time for yourself sitting up. So that would be a seated active rest or a seated constructive rest. So I'm going to show you what semi-supine looks like and talk about a couple of the things that I keep in mind as I'm doing this. So what I've got under my head here is National Geographic magazines. I happen to know for myself already, because I've been doing this for so long, that 5 magazines for me is generally a good height. I usually don't have to change anything about that, but that's going to vary for different people. There's no single correct height of something to put under your head. If you don't have something like magazines or paperback books, you can fold up a jacket, something kind of stiff, like a hoodie, as compared to a really soft, squishy sweater. Might be a better choice for that. You can fold up a towel, put it under your head. Just have something so that you've got some distance between the back of your head and the table or floor that you're resting on. So once I get here, I'm allowing my knees to bend. The things under my feet right now, if those are sticking up at all, those are cabinet liner grippy pads, and those just help my feet not slide out from under me. So that's the only reason those are there, but you don't have to have that. And then I'm going to let my arms rest wherever on my torso is comfortable. I find that for me, I like to have my hands pretty low, almost at the point of my legs, because I have my pelvis, upper bones of my pelvis here, and that lets my hands rest on something bony, rather than something that needs to move and flex as I'm breathing. I find that for me, that really does make a difference in my ease of breath, to not have my hands resting on that and being in the way. So personally, I like to have my hands lower. For some people, that's not comfortable, and that's fine. You can have your hands elsewhere on your torso, maybe on your chest for some people if that's what fits best for you. Very rarely, I'll have people keep their arms down. I find that the times that I do that the most with table work is if someone is just a wide person and just physically cannot fit their elbows on my table, because my table is honestly more narrow than I would like it to be. So if you have someone who is just wider set than I am, if their elbows are falling off the edge of the table, then no, don't put them there. Put your arms down flat. And then you can decide on the rotation of your hands, whatever's most comfortable for you. Generally, that's going to be palms down is going to be your resting position. So right now I'm turning my head so that I can speak to the camera, but with an active rest, you're going to be looking up. So here's the position. This is semi-supine. I'm letting breath come in and out. And then if you're on your own and can't use any sort of guided active rest recording, you can spend time thinking for yourself about any number of different things. A lot of those things might be giving yourself time to relax, giving yourself time to undo habitual tensions that you build up throughout your day. Some of my students say that they like to do this first thing in the morning as a sort of like morning meditation practice. Others like to find some time in the middle of the day to set aside as a midday break. Most often, though, the more common one is people saying, I do this in order to calm myself down before I go to bed. I do that myself as well. I set aside time before I go to sleep where I will give myself time to lie down and go through my directions, thinking about asking for that soft nestled connection between my head and my neck, allowing myself to breathe, knowing that when I have a lot of contact and friction with the back, especially on my shirt, depending on what kind of fabric I'm wearing, there might be a lot of friction between the fabric of my shirt and the surface that I'm lying on. And that's okay, right? Noticing that and still allowing movement to happen. One thing to keep in mind is, how are you going about the process of going from vertical to horizontal? So let's look at that briefly while I'm here and can demonstrate. This is going to also vary slightly depending on the person. If someone has issues with knees or back, take care of yourself. There's no one single correct way to do this. Adapt as needed. One thing that I find pretty helpful for a lot of people is to still be looking down where you're going to be and then rotate. What I'm avoiding doing here is a sit-up or a crunch, especially on the way back up. I might do that in a kind of half rotation here, especially if I'm looking at a camera or a person here, a student, and they're on this side of me and I'm trying to demonstrate this stuff. I might be looking over here and go up. I also can use my arms. So the way I actually teach my students when we're first getting on and off table for table work is to fully roll to the side and then use a hand and the lower elbow to actually push themselves up sideways. The reason that I recommend that is so that we don't end up losing that lovely lengthening and decompression that we just got from being horizontal on the table for a while. Anytime that I'm going to really crunch myself in order to do something like a sit-up, I'm going to lose some of that ease. I can, at this point, in my own Alexandrian use of myself journey, I can let that go pretty deliberately, rather quickly. But for beginners especially, it's basically just going to undo a lot of the work that they just did to let go. So, rolling over sideways, using your arms if needed, finding whatever works best for you. So, my next 2 videos will be guided voice recordings. It'll be an actual video, but it will be a mainly voice thing where I'm going to guide you through some directions and things that you can think about while you are in your constructive rest. So those will be coming out over the next couple weeks. The reason I wanted to make this a separate video is so that those recordings will only have the actual guided rest section on them. So if people want to then come back to those multiple times and do this as a regular thing, you don't have to hear the whole introduction first. So I'm just going to have this as its own separate video to talk about, and then the recordings as their own thing. So what I recommend and encourage folks to think about this week is, can you find time at any point in your day to find quiet? For whatever that means for you. If that's sitting quietly for a couple minutes, great. If you work something like a food service job, can you go stand in the walk-in freezer for like a minute and take a breath and then go back out? For folks who work from home, you've got a lot of options on how you can handle this. And can you set up maybe even a dedicated regular daily routine in a dedicated space for how do you give yourself time to be out of gravity and come back to ease?